so excited today to have a conversation about leadership. How are you doing today, Monique?
Hey, I am just rocking along with summer.
I know, right? The summer is crazy for me. I'm sure for many of you guys, but we know that while things may be chaotic, many of you listening to this are leaders, right? And so you're trying to figure out how can I still, show up with confidence? How can I be there, be present for my team in what is necessary, right? But also recognizing that, man, this season that you're in might be a little busy, or you may be in a season of pedal to the metal, right? Whatever season you're in, we wanted to give you some tools and strategies to help support your leadership. So, today we're going to be talking about 10 ways to lead your team with confidence. So, I know some of you listening to this might be thinking, oh man, I need that. You might be facing some imposter syndrome. Maybe you had a flood of success during the pandemic and you've lost your team, so you've lost your confidence, or you had a flood of success and the things are still rocking and rolling, but you feel like you are a chicken running around like a chicken with your head cut off, right? Like you're just like things are chaotic and crazy. And so we're going to give you a little support today to help you as you build out that confidence and continue to lead your team. So, number one, we're just going to jump right in. So, the very first thing that you have to do that it's going to give you confidence is you have to go first, right? I'm sure you guys have all heard the numerous quotes, the pace of the leader is the pace of the pack, or, leaders go first, or leaders, it's just like you set the standard for what other people see is possible. And so the reality is, you're not always going to be ready. You're not going to have it all figured out. But if you show up consistently, even if it's just something small, right? Like, we're not saying like consistently do everything every day, but if you just show up, right? What you're doing now is going to prepare you as you build your team, right? And I'm sure those of you that are friends or network with people, or even if your upline has a really large organization, they're going to tell you that, they had no idea what to do every single day. They just started, right? They just decided, hey, I'm going to practice what I preach. If you ask your team to book 4 shows a week, if you ask your team to send 5 messages a day, whatever it is you're asking of your team, you need to go first. You need to set that standard because it's also building trust.
Yes, that is so good. All right, number two is to have a clear and compelling vision. And so you may never have thought of having a vision statement, having a vision for your team, for your business, but this is absolutely huge for having a team who knows what they are working towards. And so when you can be really clear on the vision of what you want for your business, it's essentially the destination. It is where you are headed in your business. And then you can get that buy-in from your team. And one of the things that there's a book called The Vision Driven Leader by Michael Hyatt. And one of the things he talks about is that you cannot overstate your vision. And so when you think like, oh, I've talked about this already, or I've mentioned it one time, you really want to say it over and over and over again so that your entire team knows what the vision is, but how they are part of making it a possibility.
Yeah, I love that. And that's something that, when I was in the field, we would at every team meeting, I stated, our team vision statement or like mission statement because I wanted everyone to know, whether they were new or had been around for a while, just kind of that consistent, like, here's what we stand for, kind of like you said, set the tone, which also leads into number three. And that is to set the tone for what is possible. And so sometimes people come into the industry and they really have to buy belief, or borrow belief, I should say, not buy belief. They have to borrow belief. And so it might be borrow belief from you, and you might have to borrow belief from your upline or from someone else in the industry that you really admire. Because if other people are having success, then success is available for you, it's available for your team, right? That's what's so cool about this industry is it's a really low barrier to entry, right? Like you purchase a kit or whatever, and people can build these incredible, you know, businesses. It's just really phenomenal what's available to them. But if you are not marketing that, if you are not setting the tone or setting kind of the standard, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, for what is possible, chances are no one's going to go after it, right? No one's going to work towards it. And so I would just want to encourage you to, not only for your own personal, business and team and like setting goals and going after them, but also tap into their like goals, asking them like, how can I help you, right? Work towards what it is that they want, because that's really truly when success comes, is when you're helping other people.
Yes, and it makes it more than just about you. When you're focused on other people, it really gives you that excitement. You see the goals that they have and the things that they're working towards. And when you can help them make that a possibility, it just goes in alignment with what we were saying about the vision and the mission. So number 4 is to have a growth mindset. So when you are in network marketing, obviously we are speaking to network marketers, but I think this could apply to anything and it could apply to any business. But as a business owner, you are always having to learn something. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times in network marketing and then obviously in our own coaching business and community and membership, there are so many things you just don't know. Like you don't know. And you don't know what you don't know. And so there is a lot of learning. And so you have to have a growth mindset. There's someone named Carol Dweck who talks about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. She's created this whole chart that kind of maps out, what is somebody who has a fixed mindset, sound like, look like, and somebody who has a growth mindset. And the difference is if somebody has a fixed mindset, they think their intelligence is just static and what they're born with is just what they're able to do, and maybe what's been spoken to them when they were a kid, like whether it's like, hey, you're not very smart, or you're the funny kid, or you're the athletic kid, whatever that is, they live into that. Versus the person who has the growth mindset, they know that anything is possible. They can always evolve, they can always change, they can always grow, they can always make more money, they can always add people to their team. They're always looking to grow. And so part of the difference with the fixed and the growth mindset is also that when people have a fixed mindset, if something gets hard, the moment it gets hard, they avoid pain. And then if somebody has that growth mindset, they lean into that pain. Think about an analogy of weightlifting. Like if somebody starts weightlifting and as soon as it gets uncomfortable, they're like, this is not for me. I'm going back to the couch, where it was nice and comfortable. And then you have somebody who, if they're looking to lift weights, they're looking to grow muscle, they know this is going to be painful. I'm going to be sore, but they continue to show up and do it over and over because they know that it gives them the result that they want.
Yes. And it just reminds me early in our partnership when we were like, let's just try it and see. It was just like we had to grow through, and learn as we went. It was just like, let's just try it and see. And we were willing to figure it out. So yeah, I think there's a lot of power in having a growth mindset.
Well, and I
Okay.
want to say one other thing about that
Yeah, go
too,
ahead.
is you have to redefine failure. Because if you, like, as a business owner, as a network marketer, you're always going to be trying things, and some things, the majority of things, aren't going to work. But then you are going to find things that you're like, okay, that worked. And maybe it's like you share the business opportunity and it doesn't hit with a lot of people, and then you tweak how you talk about it and you're like, all right, that really resonates, whatever it is. And so if something doesn't work, don't look at yourself as a failure. Redefine it to where you're like, all right, that was simply feedback so that I know how to do it better next time.
So good. Okay, number 5 is to hold people accountable. I tell people all the time when I'm coaching and just in general, from my own experience, that one of the most loving things you can do for someone is to hold them accountable, right? I mean, with our children, even, if your kid is making a mistake, you're not just going to sit there and let them make the mistake, right? You love them. And so you want to correct them, not because you want them in trouble, but because you want them to learn and grow and evolve and make better choices, right? And that's accountability. And it's because you care so much about them, right? That you're willing to step in and say the hard thing and do the hard thing. And so it's the same thing with leadership, right? Like we really, truly, as a leader, need to be willing to do the hard thing and ask someone that question of, hey, I know this was your goal. Is it still a priority for you, right? Like, are you still willing to put in the work and put in the effort? Because right now, your actions do not align with the goal. And I am here to support you and help you and partner with you, right? But it's like, if you are not willing to do that, you are only going to grow so much because a good leader is someone who is willing to have those hard conversations. And sometimes it's not even hard. I wouldn't say every single, like, accountability isn't always hard, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it is asking people, that question of, is this still a priority to you? But it can look a variety of ways. But I just think there is so much power and accountability, even for yourself, right? Like you might even say, hey, and I know we're going to talk about that in a minute, but just being willing to ask those questions. And so one of the reasons I would encourage you to even have like an onboarding system is so that in the beginning, when someone is joining your team, you can ask them, hey, what are your goals, right? Like, what are some things you want to accomplish and achieve? And then, as time goes on, one thing that I liked to do when I was in the field, and I encourage people to do even now, as I'm coaching others, is to have either a, quarterly, and some people even go as far to do a monthly, like Google form. It's up to you, right? And the size of your team and kind of the goals that you have. But to have some kind of Google form where it's like a check-in, just to say like, hey, I want to hear, like, are you happy with where your business is at? Like, what are some things that you would like to see happen this quarter or this month or whatever, right? And just asking them, what would you like your business to look like? Where is it at right now? Where do you want it to go? So that kind of almost like a temperature check on your team of based on who wants the accountability, right? Like asking them, like, how would you like for me to hold you accountable? Would you like some more one-on-one coaching? Would you like for me to check in with you, whatever you're willing to commit to, right? Because accountability is a two-way street. You have to be willing to show up and offer the accountability. And then if they're not receptive to it, then okay, I don't need to be pouring into this person because their priorities have changed, their goals have changed, they're not responsive, because obviously you have to have boundaries. I know we'll talk about that in a second. But just in general, accountability is a form of love because it is you seeing a lot of potential in someone and having enough compassion and, love for that person that you're willing to face the hard conversations to help them reach that potential.
Yes, I love that you said it's love, because that's exactly true. Like when they come to you, they're coming to you because this solves a problem for them. And so if they get distracted and forget what that purpose was, it's you reminding them, you lovingly reminding them. All right, so number 6 is build relationships with your team. So if you've been in this business for 5 minutes, that there are people who come and there are people who go. But if you can recognize that building relationships with people is one of the best things that you can do in your team, that will allow you to really create this culture where people will want to stay because of the relationships that they have. I recently did a poll in our community where I was asking people, like, what do you love about your network marketing company? And the answer that people gave was the people, like the relationships, the people, the community. That was like the number one answer. And so as a leader, you have such an amazing opportunity to create that culture, because when you are creating an environment where people build relationships, so let's say, for example, like if you host a retreat, and you have all these people on your team who come, like you're creating an environment for them to build relationships with each other, but you're also creating an opportunity for you to pour into them and for you to be relational with them. Now, with that, there are times where you want to be wise with who gets your time and energy, those who are working, those who are leaders, those who are, Becky always talks about the tennis match analogy. Like if you're hitting the ball and they're hitting the ball back, they're showing up and doing the business activities, they're going to be the ones that receive more of your time. But every single person on your team is there for a reason. And so even if they come in and they don't make $1 in the business, they are on your team for a reason, and it is your job to love them.
Yes. So good. So number 7 is to take care of your health. Ooh, this one is one that I can tell you guys I did not do. I did not do for a while. And it definitely affected my business. It affected the way I showed up for my family. It affected everything. I mean, it really did, because if you're not taking care of your health, you're not going to be around, right? You're not going to have a business. You're not going to be there for your family. And so I think, especially as entrepreneurs, well, especially mompreneurs, right? But I would say it is so easy to just feel like you're working all the time, right? And it's easy to say, oh, I don't have time to work out. Because see, that's what I would do. I would literally prioritize work over sleep, over exercise, over, eating healthy. And it definitely affected me. I gained a lot of weight. I was like stressed. I did obviously have a lot of other things that I wasn't addressing, like even just like mental health, right? Like I just wasn't prioritizing my overall health. And so I just want to encourage you, because if you were to ask some of the most successful people, I mean, hands down, one of the things they're going to say is to take care of your body, like to get enough sleep, to work out, to drink plenty of water. And I know that seems like, oh, that's not a business strategy, but it is, because think about when you have felt your most energized, best version of yourself, right? Chances are it's when you've had plenty of sleep, you're well rested, maybe you're eating healthier. I know for me, if I eat like a massive bowl of pasta and like a ton of bread or just like fried food, I feel lethargic and I don't want to do anything at all, right?
You're like, why do
Versus,
I need to take a nap
yes,
after
seriously.
lunch?
I'm like, I don't want to go make any contacts or do social media. I want to lay down and, yeah, take a nap. And so, versus if I am, getting up and, going on a walk first thing after I drop the girls off at school, and then I'm, getting ready for the day and making healthy choices, I am I'm energized. I'm ready to take on the day. I'm not dragging my feet. And so that this is something that I think a lot of people overlook, especially as mothers, because we're wearing so many different hats, and it needs to be taken more seriously.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I love that you also brought up the mental health, because it's not just, I mean, definitely physical is so important, but I think also, taking care of ourselves, going to therapy. We talk a lot about that, getting counseling, getting, taking care of yourself holistically from a health perspective. Okay, so number 8 is to set boundaries. So being aware of who and what has the ability to contact you, like that is huge. Because especially as there is an evolution of business, I know I've felt this way, like early on in business when you're just growing and you're, little by little building, you make yourself available to everybody just naturally. But then as you continue to grow, you really need to be so much more aware of focusing on your zone of genius. Meaning, like, if okay, if I have this many hours in my day and these are the highest priority items that need to get done, then that is what is going to get your time and energy. You don't have time to be answering, being the Q&A person for the somebody who's been on your team for 5 years and they're like, where do I go to find this? And so you have to recognize that there needs to be natural boundaries of who has access to you. So if you have people on your team who are showing up, they are working, they're leading, they're doing the things, then you are going to allow yourself to, either have one-on-one calls with them or whatever you need to do for mentorship. But if you have other people who just want to take your time, but they're not doing the things that they need to do, you really need to have boundaries in place for that. Also, phone boundaries is another huge
Mm,
one with your notifications, with the time that you're on your phone, because when you can set, say, for example, business hours, you are going to work in those business hours. If you tell yourself, like, I have all day to get these things done, like you're going to take all day to get them done. And so boundaries can present itself in many different forms, but I would definitely encourage you to look at your phone time and ask yourself, like, where do you need to set boundaries with that?
yeah, and I'm guilty of that too. So yeah, I think we can all set some better boundaries with our phone. So number 9 is to connect before you correct. And I know for me, I think I can remember a couple of different times in the past when I had to have some really hard conversations with people. And the ones that we came out on the other side still having a good relationship were definitely when I connected first, right? And I was able to have a really heartfelt conversation versus I know there were a couple of times and I had, some hard lessons I had to learn when I came in, just all guns a-blazing, trying to defend somebody on my team, one of my leaders. And I know for a fact it really damaged the relationship with that other leader because I was hurt by how she was hurt and how things that had happened. And I really, I look back and I'm like, man, I wish that I had, had a more, I guess, a conversation where I was listening and asking questions first versus just coming in and trying to correct. And so learn from me. And I had to learn that lesson too, right? Because she went on to, decided she didn't want to work the business a couple of months after that happened. And so, and I know it's not necessarily just because of me, but it definitely, I'm sure, damaged her trust in like our organization and all that kind of stuff. And so I just want to encourage you that when you are trying to help someone on your organization in your organization or another leader or just a consultant or team member that you have and that's something we have to do, right? Like we have to, when we are the ones that set the tone and, are trying to create a team culture and we have someone that's coming in and damaging it, or there's gossip, or, something's being posted that maybe they're not supposed to post, or violating some kind of company guidelines, whatever it may be, right? Like you do have that, obligation, I guess, in a way to correct as the leader. And it is a necessity sometimes, but I do think there is a right way and a wrong way, right? And so it's
Yes.
even like kind of giving yourself that visual that we all know of like the sandwich approach. I know when I was teaching and I would have to, tell parents like maybe their child was struggling in a specific area, we didn't sit down at parent teacher conferences and I wasn't like, hey, so your kid can't read. Like, I wasn't like, hey, so you're going to need to da 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 da. No, instead, I would talk about, right, like the things that I loved about their child and the improvements that I've seen and the things that I was just like really proud of them for having done. And then I would say, and there are a couple of things that I think that could be improved upon or that we need to talk about and discuss, right? And so I would just encourage you to kind of think of that. I know it's kind of like cliche, but it's really helpful in leadership because it doesn't paint this picture of like, okay, she's always correcting me, she's always after me and feeling like I'm doing something wrong. And people just by nature, when you start with the positive, are more receptive to hearing the negative or the concerns. So yeah, I would just encourage you like focus on the connection, because especially if you want that relationship to last and them to feel like they can come to you and that you are a trusted quote unquote advisor and leader, then there needs to be connection before the correction.
Yes. And this goes with every relationship. Like, I feel like that can apply to just communication 101, like how to be a good communicator and how to be effective. There's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it has been years since I've read it, but I want to say that this is in there. I think there's something where it talks about the sandwiching and how it really is a powerful way to communicate with people, because you're not going to just be dismissive of things that need to be addressed, but it's how do you do it in love? How do you say it in a way that's loving? I kind of also think about two of my kids work at Chick-fil-A, and so I've kind of seen a little bit of the behind the scenes of how they're trained and the things that they learn in training. And so one of the things is they are just like so high on customer service, and the customer is always right, and just making sure that, even if the customer ordered incorrectly, right? Like, they always will give them whatever food that they're asking for, or if they're, whatever it is, they just always approach it with this high level of respect and meeting people where they are. And so I think as a leader, just taking that and saying, how can I meet my team member where they are? Okay, so number 10 is, one of the ways that you can have confidence as a leader is for you to have a coach. And especially if you are in leadership, if you have stepped into leadership, earlier when we were talking about you don't know what you don't know, like, there are just things where it may be your first time experiencing certain things. And so when you try to do it on your own, yes, you can, get to the things that you need to learn, but why would you not want to expedite that process? Why would you not want to learn from people who've gone before you? Why would you not want to have someone who says, like, hey, there's this landmine over here, like, here's how you can avoid this, or hey, I made this mistake when I was leading my team. Here's something that, don't do this when it comes to leading your team. Why would you not want to have other people who can help you, guide you, mentor you, so that that process is a lot easier? And I think the thing that I've loved about coaching, because, both of us, Becky and I, both receive coaching as well as being coaches, we receive coaching. And so I think one of the things that I have just loved is it really does allow you, just somebody who is pouring into you that offers a different perspective that you may not have realized. And also, I think, I think about, like, so let's take this into a sports analogy. It's like a football coach, for example. They are looking out on the football field and they're seeing the entire field. They're seeing the team on the left, the team on the right. They're seeing exactly what's going on. They're aware, like, oh, this thing just happened, or oh, they just brought this player in, or whatever. They're about to run this play. Like, they're aware of the entire field. When you're on the team, all you can see is where you are in position. All you can see is, like, okay, I need to go and do this next thing, or I need to, whatever it is. Whereas a coach, they're looking at the entire field, and their perspective is so much more than what you can see.
Oh man, I love that. I mean, that is so powerful. Yeah. So if you are looking for support and you are looking for coaching and you have listened to all of these suggestions on how to lead your team with confidence, we want to invite you to the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur. We have a membership where you would receive coaching every single week. You would receive a monthly action plan that would give you the confidence to show up, the confidence to lead your team. And we will put the information, the link to it, in the show notes. We would love to see you inside. And we hope that as you are continuing to build and grow and lead your team with confidence, that you're able to really truly step into what God has anointed you for, and that you can build out the team of your dreams.
Thanks so much for listening to the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur. If you loved what you heard today, could you stop and give us a 5-star rating and review? It helps our visibility on podcasting platforms so others like you can hear more of this message.
Also, if this episode encouraged you, we would love for you to pass it along to your own biz bestie and anyone else who could benefit. Lastly, don't forget that if you want to hang out with us just a little bit more, join us inside the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur community. Click the link in the show notes. Bye for now.